At town meeting this year, voters in Manchester will have a chance to weigh in on several articles beyond the basic ones, such as the proposed town budgets and the resulting tax rates, along with organizations that typically seek town support for their work and activities, such as the Community Library, the Tutorial Center, Habitat for Humanity, and Neighbor to Neighbor, to name a few. Added to this group this year will be the Northshire Day School, which is hoping to get a thumbs up on a request for $87,000. The school is also seeking support in smaller amounts from the towns of Dorset and Sunderland. But each year also brings new items to the warning, and this year is no exception. One would authorize the town to spend up to $120,000 to purchase the rail trail, constructed in recent years by a local group which has been hoping to sell it to the town for a while. The trail, which follows an old railroad line, is currently privately owned and has been the topic of previous studies and town meeting discussions. Another is an advisory vote on a proposed field house, which will be constructed at the Manchester Recreational Park if this and other advisory votes in other towns provide forward momentum for the concept. Other articles include ones involving sewers and wastewater. One would create a new sewer district that would run along Route 7A from the library to the town's North Road, and another would authorize the town officials to spend up to $1.9 million to construct the sewer lines and system infrastructure in the new wastewater district. To discuss these and other articles on the warning, we recently sat down with Town Manager John O'Keefe. We started with the article on the field house.
And so this will give us a really good indication of what communities, of course, if it passes in Manchester, what communities are interested in partnering with Manchester on the final product. But it's advisory only. There's no binding action being taken. But it should give us a pretty good sense of public support for the project.
And then there's the rail trail is also back. This is one that's been discussed before.
Yep.
What is going to be happening with the rail trail this year?
So this year, there's an article that authorizes the select board to spend up to $125,000 from the CERC fund, the Capital Reserve Fund, to purchase the rail trail, and then another $50,000 to do some preliminary improvements. I don't expect the $50,000 will be the total amount that will be necessary to improve it over time, but it'll do the sort of things that we think are important short term. That'll be contingent upon us getting two different easements, one from Daly Gravel Pit and one from Riley Rink. So we won't buy it without those.
So then the question, I guess, for voters to consider is that it'll be up to the town to maintain it going forward into the future.
It will be. And we've done some estimates. We're not planning to plow it in the winter time because it's gravel. It'll be limbing, mowing, washouts and things like that. I can't remember the exact estimate, but I think it's less than $5,000 a year annually that the DPW director thinks it'll take to maintain it.
And then I guess the other big is I think more than one article on the proposed sewer district or an expansion or I guess a creation of an entirely new sewer district.
But right now we're looking at least Cemetery Ave on Main Street up to the mobile home park. We feel that it's really important to get the mobile home park on public water and sewer. So to create a new district that would allow us to do separate financing, and then the bond required to do that work that would be offset by connection fees. The one reason that we're pushing ahead with this is that there may be significant state funds that would be available for the project.
Is this the ARPA money? Would that be going towards that?
Some of the town's ARPA money could go towards it, but this is actually other federal monies that have been put into infrastructure that would go through the state. The ARPA money came directly to the town. Up through this stretch, I mean, there is a lot of available property. It's been an area that's been designated by the Planning Commission as an area of growth. And if we're going to tackle the affordable housing issue, it's really important that you provide public utilities for that, because otherwise you're buying a lot more land in order to build a single-family house or an apartment complex, because you're always offsetting that usage with a septic system.
So then we have the cannabis question as well, whether or not the town's voters will authorize the town to be able to be a town where cannabis could be sold. So is the question simply an up and down one as to whether or not the town wants to allow for retailers to open shop?
So the last time the legislature talked about this, you actually had to opt out In this case, communities are being asked if they want to opt into it. And it's only for retail. There's a whole bunch of different licenses that can be granted by the state involving testing, cultivation, manufacturing, and retail. So the only question that is before the voters of Manchester is about retail sales, whether they want to authorize a retail sale of marijuana and cannabis in Manchester. And then there's a description in the town report that kind of talks about what can and cannot be done. There is some ability for the local municipality to regulate cannabis sales like it would any other business through public nuisance and through zoning. But the state law is pretty specific that you can't regulate cannabis any more than you regulate other businesses.
Because the town had an ordinance in place before, right?
We still do.
And so does the state law kind of overrule that? Is that basically what the situation is?
I think the process is if town meeting votes to allow retail cannabis, then the select board would consider removing that particular stipulation. It's in the town chapter entitled Commerce, and it does a couple things. It prohibits the sale of marijuana in Manchester. It limits gun sales within 1,000 feet of schools. I think there's something in there about uranium as well.
Could stores have events where products were sampled, and then the idea being, well, then people leave, and are they then able to go out and drive, or?
There's no consumption that's authorized under state law right now. There is some thought among advocates that you would have consumption lounges. I guess you'd call it, the equivalent of a bar. But right now there is no on-site. The only place that you can legally consume cannabis is in your own house.
Manchester will hold a virtual information meeting on Saturday, February 26th, beginning at 1 p.m. Login information to the meeting is available on the town's website at manchester-vt.gov. All the articles will be decided by Australian balloting voting, as will elections for town officials. Polls will open at 8 a.m. at the town hall and remain open until 7 p.m. Early voting is also an option for those who prefer that. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.